Happy Tuesday, y'all. What's going on? All right, so just setting a little bit of the mood. Got a nice sage stick that we're going to burn a little bit. All right, continuing on with a little bit of astrology talk. I don't have a specific name for this one, but what we're going to be talking about today is how astrology, religion, science, tarot, spirituality, how all of these things, nature, Mother Earth, all actually are the same thing. And how in reality we can all recognize the unity and the oneness of experience and be able to appreciate and respect each different group's, most comfortable tradition and practices, and just be able to see the unity in all of them, because it's actually very easy to see. It's a very clear connection that um, that we all share, that all of the faiths or traditions or religions of time share. And there is, for some reason, in the recent weeks and months, I've been becoming more and more aware and have had more situations and more messages around me coming to just bring awareness to the conflict of, especially, let's say, religion and astrology, or religion and spiritualism. And it's really kind of insane to me. I was raised in an atheist home, so I didn't have the normal Christian upbringing like a lot of Americans do, especially a lot of Black Americans. But I was raised in America and definitely had plenty of Christian experiences. It's still really odd to me that, like, everyone can't see that they're looking at the same story, or the same reality with different stories. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring out today. I wanted to share with you all the perspective that I have that can link all of them together, and it's very easy for me to show to other people as well, because it's based on the earth and on Mother Nature, and I'm kind of like the reality of life on the earth. So again, I was raised by an atheist mother in an atheist home. I was not made to believe in God. I did go to vacation Bible school as a child some summers, and I did, being a Pisces sun, I did have a very strong self-awareness of a stronger, or of a higher source, a higher being, some type of creator. God is probably what the word I used back then, and still use interchangeably now. Um, but I also was being taught and even encouraged to consider that the story of Jesus and the story of the resurrection and these things that you learn in the Bible, and even the Bible itself, were not real or were not true. My mother used to tell me that I couldn't believe in God and the dinosaurs. And I knew she wasn't wrong, but I didn't think she was right either. And now, much later, my perspective is totally flipped, but she's still not wrong and not right, at least for me. So the challenge in my home and growing up in my home, and what I think that is for a lot of us, is that my mother could only see the story of Jesus the way that the Bible said it, or not. There was no in between. There was no other level of experience that she could recognize. There was no, bigger story that she could see, or bigger theme that she could see. All she knew was either you believed in Jesus and you believed in, a man born from a virgin and a man that died and came back to life, or you don't, and you don't believe in God and you don't believe in anything. And I think that for a lot of us, when we are raised in a particular faith or understanding and are brainwashed to believe that that is the truth from very young, it's really hard for us to recognize that there are whole other realities and opportunities of reality that we may not even be able to fathom, because we haven't had experience um, with the energy, or with the experience of having some another truth. We've never known that there could be other truths. Um, but that's kind of that. The reality that there are other truths is kind of like the rainbow, like the reality that the rainbow exists, although you can't always see it. The reality that that level or that layer of life is like a rainbow, that that actually is. Um, that was what I felt as a child, and was what allowed me to stay free from my mother's, no God or God perspective, and explore all truths, as many truths as I could consume. And on my own path, as I continued to do that and explore all the truths that I could, and that includes, textbooks and novels and autobiographies and documentaries and conversations and, all the different ways that you can receive and intake knowledge from people, and about people's journeys. Um, Man, it's so quick. Just lost my thought. Mercury Pisces. Da, da, da. I learning myself. Um, Man, where were we just going? Oh my goodness, it's so crazy how fast the thought can go. And then now I'm like searching for it. Anyways, it'll come back. Um, for me, it was about searching for all of the truth. So talking to all of the different people. I've searched for a universal truth because it seemed like the reason that all of the different stories that I was hearing sounded so familiar. If you ask enough and you read enough and you talk enough and you research enough about spiritual, truth or spirituality or religion or faith or belief or God, you come to find out that pretty much everyone is saying the same thing, and there are different stories that are coming to saying the same thing. Um, that was when, for me, and that really, I started to really become aware of that probably like in my early 20s. That was when, for me, my skepticism started to slow and eventually, stop. Maybe not fully stop, but really get out of my way and allow me to be able to see that there really were no differences when it came to spirituality or religion. It was all the same. It was all the same experience. It was all one experience being expressed in different languages. There are, life itself is a language. Interaction is communication. Everything is communication in some way, shape, or form. And so there is a universal language communication that exists, that all of existence knows, that all of existence actually is. It's the code of all of existence. It's the way in which you're able to understand what I'm saying right now. You're hearing the language that I'm giving you, but it's the meaning of the language that you are interpreting and understanding and processing. You get the meaning of it through the actual voice. That language, that voice, that frequency, these vibrations that are coming out that you're able to decipher and understand are happening all around us all the time from all pieces of existence. And those vibrations are what we all feel all the time. Some of us are really sensitive to vibrations, and we feel, many more than many other people. So again, like coming back to the rainbow, the rainbow is something that exists and then doesn't exist also. It has to have the exact right conditions in order for a rainbow to exist. If those things aren't there, you don't get to see the rainbow. But that doesn't mean that it's not there. There's this whole level of life like that, and communication and languages that are taking place, that some of us are sensitive enough that we actually are aware that they are there. And then there's still layers that none of us are sensitive enough to feel and to sense. And then there are general, larger, or wider even, um, levels of experience that, most, if not all of us experience. Like physical touch, or butterflies in your stomach, or like that nervous feeling. There's so many levels of experience, of frequency, that we all experience. And um, the stories really reflect that. It's so weird to me that more of us don't recognize how it's all the same thing. Astrology is one of the most basic ways that the humans have come to understand their time and space on the planet. And I know this because if you sit outside and you stare at the sky, which if you don't have any or much, or easily accessible night light, you're probably going to be doing a lot of staring at the sky. Excuse me. If you sit underneath the sky for long enough and you watch it, you will come to literal understandings. The sky, literally, with enough of your energy, will begin to share information with you. The same thing happens if you watch the earth, or plants, or trees, or a garden, or animals, or people. Anything that you give your attention to, your continual, truly interested attention to, you will come to know it. You will come to understand it. That's the beauty of attention and of life and of being a human. When it happens to be the environment, it's not super quick. It isn't something that happens over a couple of days, but over extended amount of time, months and years and decades and centuries even, of observation of the sky and of the seasons and of the earth and of the cycles of the earth and the cycle of the sky and the cycles of them together, you come to an understanding from perspective only that all of us can see, if we do this, that actually tells the story of all of the greatest religious and spiritual texts that have ever been written. They are all stories of what is happening in our environment, because that's what humans have been studying from the beginning of time, is the environment. The mother gives birth to her baby, and not to say that all mothers or all babies live through childbirth. They don't, and life even has a really good way of keeping things in check and having mothers and babies die sometimes so that the strongest genetics or population controls, are in check. And it's something that we're not too comfortable with now. But mother gives, losing people at birth, but mother gives birth to the baby. And let's say the placenta is not, the mother's bleeding after the placenta has been birthed. The mother's going to go to the plants outside, to nature, to help with her bleeding. She's going to know that because it's been cultures and cultures, or generations of her culture, using these plants to stop bleeding. But she's going to turn to her natural environment to use something to keep herself alive, to take care of her child. And that's the very beginning and kind of like the important part of life, is that a baby has a mother to raise it up, to nurture it and nourish it and care for it and grow it up to adulthood so that life can continue on. Where are we going? We're talking about mom. I go to a thought already to the next thought, and then I forget where I was going to go to it, but it always comes back because I know where I'm going. But I don't always remember every step to get there, man. Mercury and Pisces is real. All right. Mother's job is to raise the babies up. Where was I talking about the mother for, though? Gosh, it's so crazy. It's really late too, though. It's like 4 a.m. almost in Phoenix, but I had to get this done before the night was up. All right. Mom's gonna go to the plant's gonna go to her environment to help her be able to raise her children. It's our environment that guides us. It's our environment that provides the most basic things to keep us alive and nourishing the next generation so that life can continue. So it's the environment, our actual environment that surrounds us, that humans throughout time have given their most attention and energy to. It's vital for survival, so we have naturally focused our energy and attention on it so that we can learn it to the best of our abilities, so that we can know what it does and use it appropriately. Like with sage, with taking fire and putting it against plants. and realizing that these plants are releasing a particular essence, a smoke. They're burning and releasing things in this. This is vital to our existence. Our relationship with plants and the ways in which we've used plants over time is vital to humanity. So it's very clear that the stories that we can read in books that are told by humans, the reasons that they are identical to what is happening in our environment, because it's been our way of taking what we see that's happening in the cycles that we see amongst humans, amongst societies, amongst cultures, amongst the different sexes, amongst different age groups, amongst different cultures. I think I said that. Um, it's our way of communicating and creating another language about what we see and a way to pass it down, but in a very ego-driven way, which is the human. Um, so many of these stories, if you really are reading them with an open mind and reading these books as, and I'm talking about like the Bible and the Quran and even the Tao Te Ching, um, you see that these books are observations of nature and of the cycles of life, and that some of us throughout time, and some of us come from families of these people that throughout time have kept a really good record, um, and are a part of building monuments, like cities and countries, and kingdoms and empires. Some of us come from these families of people that were really good at record keeping and had even, let's say, the luxury of record keeping and an observation in that time. And they have great records of time of how life reacts during certain cycles of the environment all around the entire earth. And the ways in which life acts. So let's say wintertime in either hemisphere. During wintertime, life acts in certain ways, and the sky is doing certain things, and the earth is doing certain things, and it's always basically the same way during this time of the year. And because of that, it's very easy to watch consistent, repetitive experiences take place. And when you watch things long enough, I was speaking to a friend tonight, and I meant to ask him before we got off the phone, was any of his solitude that he was speaking of, and even another young woman today are talking about depression. I asked, is there any part related to the season? Do you tend to be like this when the holidays come around? Because a lot of times depression is totally linked to the fact that there's not a lot of sun, or the fact that people are under a lot of pressure from the holidays. And so our environment is so constructive of us. It's literally what constructs our energy frequency is our environment. And when we are unaware of not only that, but of what our environment's frequencies are and what they are doing to us and how they're influencing us, it's like we have no control over our life. This shadow right here is driving me crazy on my looks like I got socked up. I didn't though. It's just this light down here. So I was driving past this church. It's a Catholic church, and bilingual Catholic church. And they also do tarot cards and past life regression and aura cleansing and energy work. And I'm going to stop by here and go check it out, because that's the reality of our life. Astrology is not an evil anything. It's not the work of anything but of God, honestly. And the Bible is literally an astrological record. I mean, they follow a star to Jesus, Um, the story of the Bible is one of the most beautiful creation stories, and it is a story of the heavens and the earth and what happens when they come together. And that's the story of life, is the story of the heavens and the earth and what happens when they come together. That's God. Heaven and earth come together to create life. That's the two voices. That's the one, two, and the three. That's the reoccurring truth through time, is that we have, this Trinity that comes together to create new life. And there are many different ways in which we talk about that, and it depends on the environment you're in. um, Tarot cards is not someone working with some evil, satanic demon energy. It's someone who has become really good at deciphering subconscious frequency waves, and because of that is able to use other languages that doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you say it or when it's even happening. It blows my mind. But imagine the people who wrote the stories of the Bible or of the Quran. Imagine what type of experiences those people were having. And imagine what it's like to hear the voice of God. Imagine what that actually is like, or to, sacrifice one's life for God. Imagine what that actually looks like in real life. It looks a lot more like what people who are spiritual and who are living spiritual lives and pathways, if that's what it looks like, those tend to be the people that the religions are created off of. Jesus wasn't a person who sat in church and worshiped God. Jesus was a man, a being, an entity, an energy frequency that actually did work in the community and actually spread love through action. Jesus was not someone who was talking or singing or thinking or praying about it. He was the actual action. And then tradition is created off of that action, because that action comes from someone who has learned how to decipher the many different languages that are happening. They are high sensitive beings with the ability to decipher these sensory systems. I can communicate with plants and with trees, and I hear their communication, and with birds and with bugs and with humans. These frequencies are easy for me to now to use in the same way as I'm using my voice, and to understand in the same way that I understand music. And it came from consciously asking for the ability to do it, and from consciously giving these beings my attention and recognizing their unity and their oneness with me, and interacting with them in pure, authentic ways, and not, belittling my interaction with them or thinking less of it because it was with a new type of a language. Being open to it, like I remember I took like 6 years of Spanish in school and I still can't speak Spanish, but it was because I didn't think that I could speak Spanish. Every year I was like, man, I'm not going to learn Spanish this year. This stuff is hard. How can I remember all this? I'm not going to. And I never did. And yet now I know the language of trees. Like that's kind of crazy. Um, but it's because it's the same frequency that my voice is, but it's a different measurement of frequency. It's a different measurement of the wavelengths. My voice is on one level and that is on another level, and most of us, not all, but most of us have the ability to understand this sound part. A lot of us don't have the ability to decipher and understand and feel even, or even notice that that's coming from trees, or even that is coming from this seemingly dead plant. This is a seemingly deceased plant. And yet, as I burn it, I smell the essential oils that this plant grew and developed in order to be healthy and strong, and to be medicine, and to be food, and to protect itself. And I'm smelling this, and a lot of people would say that this is dead, and yet that smell, that aroma, that frequency of these oils and of this plant matter that is still very much um, alive, it's actually making my body have reactions. This is a healing experience for my body. Sage actually has healing properties in its smoke that when I inhale it, those properties interact with my cells and shift my frequency. It's the basis of life, and it's very, very easy to see when you just watch life with an honest and open mindset, and you allow the sameness. I want to shout out a sister who did a recent moon mantra manifestation with a group of us, and she's Christian, and she shared in the group how amazing it was for her that she wasn't doing the mantra, and she wasn't chanting to the moon or to the earth, which was a part of the mantra, or the manifestation. But what she did do was use this thing that I shared with her to help her bring more awareness to the moon, and bring more awareness to the earth and to the sun and to the stars, and include them in her faith and in her understanding of her faith in Jesus, and in her pathway of Christianity and of that Christian practice. And I was so touched by that, because I've known a lot of Christians, and I've had a lot of Christians be really not open at all to, to the bigger reality, or to other realities. But I'm finding more and more people recognizing, like, hey, you know what? I think Christianity actually includes all of this. I think Christianity actually includes an understanding of the stars and of the earth and of the seasons and of the cycles. Like, why wouldn't it? Can we just pretend like the stars aren't there? Some people say, we will accept, science says that the moon is what makes the waves. The moon, a luminary in the sky I'll just say a luminary in the sky, that it makes the waves of the earth, and the tides. So this luminary in the sky, we're saying we accept, because science says, affects the movement of the earth. I mean, it's mostly water. She's mostly water. But we won't accept that the moon might affect the little 70% water that we are. It's kind of weird. It definitely does affect us. And it affects plants, and it affects everything, just like the sun does. So I just wanted to spend a little time. I didn't actually plan on spending 30 minutes, but just making a connection. I'm going to talk more about this and have even more planned conversations on topics, because there's a lot of stories in the Bible, and especially the Bible. I would say that that's what I've personally studied most. I haven't really gotten into the Quran much. I have read the Tao, which is different to me. And I'm in America, so I feel like the conversations, mostly have to do with the Bible. But there are so many stories in there, and so many practices in religion that are so clearly astrological, and based in astrology, and based in the understandings of astrology, that it's kind of doing a disservice to people to not make the connections and not talk about it. It can be uncomfortable. I used to be really uncomfortable talking about it. But now it's like, well, guys, I mean, you're kind of just being silly by not at least just opening your mind to the possibility that there can be similarities, and that maybe that it's we can maybe the all inclusivity is the truth, and it's tradition and culture that makes the differences, just like language, just like dress, just like hair, just like all of the differences, but that they're not really that. There's the universal human language, and the universal human language is what we're all talking about. you know um Humans born in winter are aligned with the frequencies of all the other things of that time. And, watch enough humans born in winter and you'll start to see patterns. You'll just start to see patterns, because life is a pattern, and it's a program, in many and all senses of that word. It's patterned and it repeats itself and it's very cyclical. And through observation alone, we can figure it out. And there's many different levels of observation, and sciences and the deeper observations have brought much understanding to all the different layers and intricacies. And then I've also confused us a lot and have brought a lot of lies and theories that just are not true. The truth is if you sit outside and you watch the sky and the sun and the moon and the seasons and the earth and the plants and the trees for a few seasons, you will be able to find God. You can find your creator right out here. This is where all creator has come from. All stories of creator have come from the human sitting and observing the beautiful, beautiful, most abundant, most nourishing cycles of our earth and of our sky, and of us. So I'm a bridge. That's a part of what I do here. So I want to help bridge these communities and these understandings together. Shouting out the Panhala, I think, church in Mesa, Arizona, a Catholic church, a bilingual Catholic church that's also studying tarot and astrology and metaphysics. Um, Shouting out all of the esoteric studies and the people that bridge these things together, the astro uh, theologists, and just all of them, people that have been doing this work for a long time. There's going to be a group of people that will never get to that work, that they'll get to the message through me. So I'm here for y'all, and we'll talk more about it. But just making a link between astrology and religion really is kind of the big two, and how they really are one and the same. And we'll talk more as time progresses about individual stories, but let's just say, like, they literally found baby Jesus by following a star. And if you think about the fact that the constellations have been exactly the same since at least 2,000 years ago, and probably for much longer than that, our sky just does the same thing over and over again. It's very cyclical. It's not what they say it is. Just watch it. So, all right, y'all. Peace. Have a beautiful afternoon. Have a beautiful Tuesday. Talk to you soon.